Welcome back to Wake Up WA. Now, we have had some rather unfortunate and untimely infrastructure problems in the northwest, being, of course, the explosion of the gas pipeline. Now, this has created major disturbances to industry, and of course that's following on into our households now, and to the point where we're being asked not to use our heaters and things as much as normal, because really the state is almost on its knees through a gas shortage. Joining us now from the MTA, CEO Peter Fitzpatrick joins us to tell us, well, maybe we should have had some backup plans in place, and at the very least we should learn from this problem and have them in place for the future. Good morning, Peter Fitzpatrick.
Good morning, Jason. Good morning, Anita.
Good morning.
How are you feeling today?
Pretty good, yes. Yeah, other than the fact I've had a short shower.
Short shower, yeah. Military shower this morning?
Military shower this morning, yes. Yeah. Turn the lights off.
Now, we spoke the other day about contingencies and how probably would have been a good idea, well, probably would be a good idea for Western Australia to have a backup. Did anyone have any idea before this gas pipeline problem that we were so fragile in the sense that take away that one source of energy and all of a sudden we're in a world of trouble?
Well, I think people got used to having little outages. You know, we had some minor breakdowns on the pipe that were 2 or 3 days to fix. And I think everyone was sort of lulled into a sense of false security to say, look, most of the outages are going to be of a short-term nature. We can work around them. It's not going to be catastrophic. But I think what this really points out, and it's all very well to be wise after the event, we're all very clever sort of looking at it now saying, well, why didn't we? But the reality is we do need a state emergency plan of some description to deal with energy in particular. We need state emergency plans for a whole range of things. Many years ago, back in my military days, I was involved with the Ash Wednesday bushfires in Victoria, and I had a regiment of soldiers that I took out into the fires. It was pretty dangerous stuff, and it was pretty horrific. The places we went through, there were a lot of loss of life and property, and that state had no real emergency plan to speak of. But after that, they really got busy and developed a plan so that there was proper coordination once the disaster occurred.
I was actually sitting at East Sale Air Force Base on a radio headset and telephone coordinating movement of helicopters and firebags and same time. So
yes, well, you appreciate the lack of coordination and things that went on at that time was pretty horrific. And
well, I was an 18-year-old kid, been in the Air Force for 3 months, and I was part of the program. So obviously, again, it highlighted the fact that the SES in Victoria had a major overhaul after that, and they sold off some really cool gadgets too. But again, so sometimes it does take an emergency situation to highlight
to get it right. And I think all I'm saying in my latest trade talk is that let's learn from this particular lesson, because it could have been worse. We could have lost the whole pipeline, whether it's through flood or explosion or something else. See, we're very vulnerable for energy here. There are two things that we need to really focus on. First of all, we've got one refinery. Now, anything could happen to that. It's an old refinery. I know it's been modernised, but if you get an explosion there, the Kwinana refinery, if you get an explosion there, or if there's a contamination in the refinery, and all of a sudden all the diesel fuel, for example, that comes out is contaminated, then we've got a problem, because the only reserve that we've got is what's in the tanks underground in service stations or at businesses, or in the tanks of your car. Now, it takes about 30 days to line up a ship. You've probably got 10 days loading and steaming time to get it here. So it could be up to 6 or 7 weeks before you get a shipload of diesel coming in. Now, that can cause a huge problem in the state, because we would grind to a halt in that time.
Let's be blunt. If the Australian federal government hadn't allowed emergency reserves of diesel off of the Navy's base at Garden Island, we'd be pretty much stuffed right now, wouldn't we?
We'd be in trouble. In fact, about 5 years ago, I wrote to the state government and said it's time we had a strategic fuel reserve. Even some of the smaller countries of the world, like Tanzania, has a strategic fuel reserve. And we do have the facilities. There are tanks there. The Gull depot has enough tanks to keep a reasonable strategic reserve, and there are others that could be developed. So that's one thing we need to do. We need to have a strategic diesel reserve, because as people have moved to diesel from gas, we've got problems with diesel. The second area we needed is, of course, the gas itself. You know, we have two pipelines that run like thin sort of threads down through the state. There's the Dampier to Bunbury pipeline, which is on the coast, and then there's a Goldfields pipeline. Now, if either of those go out, we haven't got any reserve gas here. The gas just simply slows down or stops flowing. And there is a way of fixing it. The Americans have been doing it since the Second World War, and that's you store gas in underground reservoirs where gas has previously been. For example, in the Dongra gas fields.
Oh, okay, in the actual natural underground cavern reservoirs.
You don't have to build stuff. You know, to build 2 months' worth of gas reserves, we know you'd have a huge gas farm.
Yeah.
But why not put it back in the ground where it's already come from? So if we've already sucked a whole lot of gas out of Dongra and you've got big caverns there, put it back in and use it as a storage. So everything north of there, if it goes out, if you had 2 months' worth of gas stored, now there'd be a cost to this, but I think the businesses that have gone broke or have got all their staff on holidays at the moment would be probably quite happy to pay a slightly higher premium for continuity of supply anyway. So that's what we should be doing, in my view. We should be storing gas. The Americans do it. The Americans do it because they get huge shifts in winter and summer usage of gas, and you'd have to build a huge pipeline to keep up with the daily supply. So they store it underground. They've been doing it for the best part of 60 years. I would have thought it's something we should be able to master as well.
So it's not too late to do that now after this shortage? Or
well, we can't do it now because we haven't got enough gas to stick in there, but after it, yes, you're absolutely right, Anita. I think we should. They're the sort of things that I think we should explore. Now, look, I'm not a gas expert. I'm the first to admit that. You know, motor vehicles, petrol, these sort of things are my go, but I've got to say that this, to me, having had some contact with people in the US that have discussed this with me, having done a bit of research on it, it seems just like a logical thing to do. If we get a breakage between here and Dongra, well, I guess we've got a problem, but there's probably areas, even in the Perth metropolitan area, underneath Perth, where we could do this.
You were a captain in the SAS, I hope you don't mind me saying, and obviously your military background and mine the same. I mean, you always assume failure. I mean, the whole point of an aircraft, you've got 4 or 5 of everything because you assume as soon as you go into a combat situation, the bad guys are going to turn off your electronics. So, I mean,
you plan for the worst.
In any form of business, don't you? You have business insurance, so it's a common sense thing. Just finally, in closing, you've also put on the bottom of your trade...
I was a colonel, actually.
You're a colonel, sorry. Sorry.
I've been demoted.
I was looking at your early history. But you were saying in your latest trade talk as well that at the very least an energy subcommittee of state cabinet should be formed. And again, so you're saying you're not an expert, but maybe make common sense to form a group to come up with a strategic plan.
Yeah, well, I think what I'm saying is because energy's, what's this proved, is such a huge part of our daily sort of living standards that it probably at least demands Cabinet to form a subcommittee with the relevant ministers in there and experts from oil and gas, from the petroleum industry and so on, so that Cabinet's got a ready source of supply. It can refer issues to it. It can even get these people to develop this state emergency energy plan that I think needs to be developed. They should even be starting to work on it now. Look, I don't want to be critical of the government. They're handling a difficult situation well. They're doing it on a cooperative basis. They're trying to make everything work. They haven't declared a state of emergency, which is the sort of last resort, I suppose. So they're working through the thing. But I think questions have got to be asked now. What are we going to do in the future? What happens if this occurs again? What happens if a cyclone takes out 50 kilometres of pipe and
They say it's only a mistake if you don't learn from it. I think we've at the very least been awakened to the urgency of a plan for the future. But go to the MTA website, look at the trade talk from Peter, contingency plan needed for state emergencies. Very worthwhile reading, and certainly a bigger conversation that we can have right here. But put a bit of pressure on the MPs and get behind Peter and the MTA and support a push for what really probably should have been in place beforehand. However, in the meantime, use less gas. Let's get through this together as a state and then plan for the future from there. Peter, thanks so much for joining us.
Jason, yes, I think it's a cooperation thing we're working on now. That's a good way to go.
Excellent. We do need to go to a break though, so cooperate with us and turn your eyes away for 90 seconds, then come right back. We're on Wake Up WA.